once, my ass.
I'm only 4. Bonjour, Monsieur Pussycat.
Cracking toast, Robert.
Start spreading the news.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the short podcast about short films. I'm your host, and we are discussing the Academy Award for Best Animated Short. Today's episode is about the 63rd year of the award at the 67th Academy Awards, which celebrates the films of 1994. Today's guest is one you listeners know well. You last heard her discussing Anna and Bella and the nominees of 1985. Please welcome back our favorite short, Miss Zita Short. Hello, Zita.
Hello, thank you so much for having me on again. This is going to be a lot of fun. And gosh, we've done quite a few episodes at this point. So I feel as though I've gotten slightly more familiar with the category, which is good.
Yeah, I just went to look up how many episodes you've actually been on, and I think this is your 7th episode. I hadn't realized. Yeah, I was thinking it's like, oh, this must be at least her 5th, and it's like, yeah, 7. I think that might be the most. Either or you or Christoph. Actually, let me just check how many Christoph has, because he's been like regularly on every single decade. But then it's just like you had a few like double episodes, and so it's like that could counteract that. So Christoph has been on 7, although he has the very next episode will be his 8th. So
okay.
You're tied with him for this one brief moment.
Yes, I need to eliminate him.
Oh no. I hope I don't suddenly see a news report about like German man found dead.
Yeah. Well, he brought it on himself.
Or maybe you just take over his life. You just pretend to be Krista. I think you could do it. I think you could probably do an accent.
Yeah, I go to the Goethe Institute a couple of times, and suddenly I'm able to fully impersonate someone who speaks. Is it High German? Christoph speaks a fancy dialect of German, so that would be even more difficult to learn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Just make sure you read up on your Rainer Werner Fassbinder, and you'll be good.
Yes.
But of course, just remind us, what is your familiarity with the best animated short category?
So relatively limited, especially in comparison to some of the guests that you've had on. But I am improving day by day, and I feel slightly less lost than I did when we recorded that first episode, which is good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just like having been on 7 episodes, it's like, yeah, you've learned a bit, or at least I hope you have. At least I hope you've been listening to me. But yeah, it's just like over the years you've been with us since the Silly Symphony days, and we saw you during like the Tom and Jerry era, and then you were there for Monroe when that came in, and just like the whole new era of the animated short category. And you've been with us during the 70s and 80s as well. And now we're here in 1994. And let's just get into these nominees, see what it has in store. Our first nominee and the year's winner is Bob's Birthday, directed by Alison Snowden and David Fine. This is the second nomination and first win for Snowden, and first nomination and first win for Fine. Snowden was previously nominated for Second Class Mail in 1985, though the pair also directed nominee George and Rosemary in 1987, though the nomination went to producer Eunice McCauley. This is also the 24th nomination and 4th win for the National Film Board of Canada, their first win since their 3-year winning streak at the end of the 70s. Since we last spoke, Snowden and Fine were living in Canada, working at the NFB, living out their animation dreams. However, whether it be homesickness or just wanting to get out of Canada, or whatever reason, the pair moved back to London and continued their animation career there. They still worked with the NFB, mind you, they just did it outside the confines of the Canadian border. Hence today's nominee. Bob's birthday is about Dr. Bob Fish, a dentist, and his wife Margaret, who is planning a surprise party for him. Mild-mannered British hijinks ensue. This short would go on to inspire a 4-season animated sitcom called Bob and Margaret. Zita, start us off. What did you think of Bob's birthday?
Well, it was interesting to watch this short, especially in relation to the fact that it was funded by the National Film Board of Canada. I don't know if you listen to this podcast, but have you heard of the Important Cinema Club?
No, I have not.
Okay, so it's a podcast hosted by two Canadian film critics, and usually they just talk about art house filmmakers, but on this one episode, they talked about Canadian cinema, and they were largely critical of it, quite self-deprecating, but sorry, one thing that they noted was that the National Film Board of Canada, at least in terms of funding feature films, they tend to be quite risk-averse, and you end up with a lot of sort of educational programming that is quite didactic, instead of funding for art house films, which would actually be cheaper to make and probably wouldn't make money, but Canadian efforts to produce a sort of American style blockbuster have not been successful. So that was their basic argument. So I went into this with a very negative view of the National Film Board of Canada, and it seems like the funding of animated shorts was less restrictive, you could say. They weren't funding movies like Men with Brooms, the curling-centric romantic comedy that launched Paul Gross's career. And weirdly, okay, Molly Parker is in that movie, so there's actually a legitimately good actor who showed up in it. Anyway, seems like they had better luck with these animated shorts. And this one, I think it's sort of your, I don't want to say typical, but with a lot of these, let's say, artier shorts, it tends to be confronting issues like midlife crises, which is sort of what's going on here. It's this man being forced to accept that he's middle-aged and a lot of his life is sort of behind him, and his window of opportunity has narrowed, but his wife is willing to support him through this experience. And so you sort of have this bittersweet, melancholy tone where, yes, there are certain things that you lose out on when you meet this age. And yet, at the same time, he doesn't have it as bad as others.
Mhm.
And ultimately, even though a lot of his wife's sort of well-intentioned attempts to get him out of this rut end up having a deleterious impact on his mental state, ultimately he does have something to hold on to.
Yeah, like this really is a sort of if you like dig deep into it, it is a very kind of melancholy film where it's just like this about this guy who's just kind of lost all lust for life, as it were, and it's just like, but it uses that to propel itself into this really strange sort of comedy space. Is where it's just like because it's like his wife's planning his birthday party for him, and it's just like wow. And the first scene of the film, it's just like we see him like ogling his secretary or whatever as he's like talking to his wife, while the secretary is like checking the plants for bugs or whatever. I'm not sure. Or and then it's just like, and then and once we get to the surprise party, and it's just like he doesn't know that there is a party. There's all the guests are like hiding, and he talks shit about like half the people at the party and whatever. And then it's just like his wife goes upstairs and he just talks to himself openly about like how disappointed I guess he is with his life while all the guests are still hiding there. Or as it's both just very funny and very uh like I said, melancholic. It's just it's such an interesting film. And when I had first watched this, I had just completely written it off. I thought it was just so boring and so long. And I imagine it was because I was watching I didn't watch these films like year by year when I did the first watch. It was like 20 films at a time. And so it's just like when you have something like this and then something like uh our upcoming nominee, The Big Story, which we'll get to like back to back, it's just like, yeah, this film can feel pretty long. But it's just when you really sit down with it and let it like talk to you, I guess. It's both very funny and very poignant. And I really found myself loving this.
Yeah, and also weirdly, sorry, I'm gonna get into my personal life now, but I was sort of cleaning out one of my closets the other day that has, I guess, a lot of crap in it, but also a lot of stuff that reminded me of my time in high school. And look, I'm 20, I'm not technically middle-aged yet.
Not
And
technically.
and yet I got so depressed thinking about it. I was thinking about all of the opportunities I missed out on in high school, how much of a loser I was back then, uh, wrestling with the fact that, oh, I could have been better, but then realizing, oh no, you had all of these problems as well, and so you couldn't have been. Yeah, it was a bit easier for me to relate to this film than I might have expected because of that. So no, I was looking down at photographs of my high school classes, and it was weirdly affecting in a way that I didn't expect it to be. So yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, maybe we need a film called Zita's Birthday. It's like I need to plan
Mm.
you surprise party, you or something like
Oh
that.
God, yes. I then again, I don't when I'm 50, the midlife crisis will be insane because I'm already experiencing guilt and regret over what I have and have not done in the past. So, God, what's going to happen
I mean,
when I'm
50,
that age?
that's way past midlife anyway. Like that's 20 years left.
Yeah,
But
well, I'm expecting to live a long time.
okay, Zeta's gonna be living to 100 people. You
Mm.
heard it here first.
I'm the Manuel de Oliveira of New Zealand women. So,
Oh, yeah. I was gonna make another joke, but I couldn't think of anything. But this is going back in the conversation a little bit, but I did look up like NFB feature films, and because I heard about this one movie that they made. I just wanted to double check that it was something they made. But there's something called The Company of Strangers. It's by director Cynthia Scott, who previously had won an Academy Award for a short film, Flamenco at 5:15, which is the best winner in the documentary short category, in my opinion. And I think Christoph really loves it too. But it I haven't watched it yet, so I can't this can't really be a total recommendation, but it seems so beautiful and I really want to watch it. According to the letterbox description, it's about a busload of women becoming stranded in an isolated part of the Canadian countryside. As they await rescue, they reflect on their lives through a mostly ad-lib script. It seems like the imagery in it looks gorgeous. It seems like a great film. And so it's just like, and so I think they did have a few art house affairs at times. And it's just like, and there's also this film, I've heard The Mermaid Singing, which I've also heard really good things about. But yeah, it's not all like imitations of uh American blockbusters or anything. Like they do try to be a bit artistic. And like we were saying also with their animation specifically, like that was spearheaded by Norman Laren, who is one of the one of the experimental filmmakers of all time. And he's the one who like really made the animation branch of the NFB what it is and made it as iconic as it is, brought in so many great filmmakers, and from there it just developed into what we know as what we know it as today. And it's like, but the rest of the NFB is mainly focused on doing like documentaries and stuff because they want to educate the Canadian public and the children of Canada. Though sometimes they like to have a bit of fun.
Yeah, I think a big part of their criticism was this idea that Canada doesn't really have national myths or a strong sense of national identity in the way that America does. And so when they try to produce a rousing war epic, it just isn't the same. And I can sort of relate as a New Zealander. We don't have the strongest sense of identity either. So yeah, I get it in that regard. And I can also understand when the government pours $20 million into a film that no one goes to see. That's depressing.
But hey, at least New Zealand, you have Lord of the Rings.
Oh yeah. It's definitely a New Zealand film and not a giant Hollywood production. But we have the piano, I guess. That's what we fall
You
back.
do have Jane Campion as well. I think there's a lot of like filmmakers that come from New Zealand.
Yeah, well, 3 James Bond films directed by Kiwis. So that's more than America can say.
I feel like you're underselling New Zealand. I think there has to be more.
Yeah, well, maybe.
But yeah, going back to Bob's birthday, um, I I really love the birthday party scene, or which I guess is the majority of the film, but it's just the whole conceit of it is just that like you're trying to give a surprise party to someone, but you aren't able to pull off the surprise yet. They just keep talking about like they just keep like forcing you to delay the surprise because like, oh, he starts talking shit about all his friends and then he goes and like gets undressed and it's just like you can't have everybody jump out with his dick out. It's just like, oh, it's just so funny. And then of course, spoilers in case you care, but at the ending of it, they just drive off to the restaurant or whatever. Anyway, they just completely leaving all the guests there, and they still don't come out or anything, even though they know they've been left behind. And it's so funny. It's that sort of I think it's dramatic irony. It's called, and it's so well executed. It's so perfect here. Absolutely love it.
Me too. It almost reminded me of an episode of Peep Show at some points. Have you seen that? Sorry, I'm just making a lot of references.
I haven't seen it, but I know a lot about it. Like I have a lot of friends who are into it. So it's just like I know what you mean, but when you make the comparison.
Yeah, I think if you've never watched it, and if you never want to watch all, I think it's 9 seasons, you have to watch the Christmas episode. It is extraordinary. It centers around Mark and Jez, who are 2 sort of layabout flatmates. One of them is ostensibly a successful sort of stuffed shirt, but he's very uptight and anxious about sex. And then his roommate, Jeremy, is an unsuccessful musician and freeloader who miraculously manages to hook up with people. Anyway, Christmas episode, Mark's family is coming over. He despises all of them and is deeply depressed, but also wants to plan it perfectly. Jeremy, at one point, pretends that he hasn't bought them a turkey, and Mark just flips out, and it's glorious to watch. I have not explained that very well. It's a lot more angst ridden than I made it sound, but gosh, it's funny.
I I will try to check it out once we finish recording. But yeah, something that always interested me about that show is the way it's shot, because it's like, from what I understand, it's like all the shots are from the point of view of another character. And I think that's such an interesting way to like film anything, really. And it's just like, it feels like something that would be incredibly distracting as a way to film something. But I guess not, considering the show ran for 9 seasons and was incredibly popular and everybody seems to love it. So
Yeah, the
that's
thing is, they did abandon that technique maybe a couple of seasons into the show. And so in later seasons, you still have the technique of hearing the voiceover of a particular character, and then the camera sort of takes on that perspective, you could say, but you no longer have the direct point of view shots that feature in the early seasons. Anyway,
oh
sorry for that detour.
no, it was relevant. You were comparing it to this other thing, and it's just like, yeah. But yeah, we can still just go back to the short itself. Do you have any favorite moments or anything?
I think, like you, I probably enjoyed the sequences that focus on Bob's sort of intense solipsism, his inability to step outside of himself and to kind of notice what's going on around him. So obviously you have the moment with the secretary. I would also just say when he's in the doctor's office, I think it is, his complete sort of, again, inability to look at what he's learning about through a wider context, to sort of take it in and not treat it as the end of the world. And sorry, that makes this whole thing sound incredibly depressing. I think it does balance out a lot of its sort of sharper observations with a bit of sentiment. But those sequences work for me because I do think they really embrace the darkness of this premise.
I think the main thing about it is just the fact that it's British, and that'll tell you everything you really need to know about this.
Okay.
Uh, but yeah, it's a very dry humor, and it has this sort of like depressing aspects, but it's still very funny, despite the fact that it's British.
Yes. Yes. It's are you one of those people who prefers British comedy to American comedy?
I, probably not. I can enjoy like some British comedy shows and whatever, but I just want things to be funny, and wherever the funny comes from, that's what I enjoy. I never really consider like, oh, this is the kind of humor that I enjoy more than this kind of humor. It's just like sometimes things are funny, sometimes things aren't.
Yeah, I generally agree. Then again, sorry, I'm already forcing you to watch Peep Show. I think you should also watch Auf Wiedersehen, Pet.
I've never even heard of that. What is that?
Okay, have you heard of Mr. Timothy Spall?
Yes, I do know Timothy
Yes.
Spall. He's great.
So this early on in his career, sort of pre Mike Lee and his sort of renaissance as a dramatic actor, this was a television comedy that he starred in, where he and several other actors, of course, portray a group of sort of unsuccessful handymen working in Britain. They work in construction, and they decide, as part of, I guess it was a financial scheme that the German government cooked up, to go over to Dusseldorf and work on a building site there because it's more affordable to live there, allegedly, and they'll be paid well. And so a lot of it is just sort of the culture clash comedy, but also the dynamic between these men. It's very funny. I think you'd like it.
This show ran from 1983 to 2004?
But okay, British TV is weird because you could have, let's say, a 6-episode season of television that is huge. It will take them 4 years to decide, maybe a second season. So that's what Auf Wiedersehen Pet is like. There are only 40 episodes that were produced over that 19-year period.
Oh yeah, I'm looking at the show now. There's 5 seasons. 2 of them were made in the 80s. 3 of them were made in the 2000s. That
Yeah, it's odd.
it does seem like art. Yes.
Hmm.
Uh, maybe I'll check this out. Though I'm I'm not sure. This might be a bit much. We'll see. We'll see. Um, but wait, so what did this have to do with Bob's birthday? I forget.
Sorry, just talking about British comedy in general was
Okay.
basically the main thrust of the argument.
All right. I I sense we might be running low on things to talk about Bob's
Sorry.
birthday. Do you have anything else you'd like to say about the film?
Not really. Sorry.
Okay. No, you're fine. I'm just trying to get all our conversation out. Then we can move on to our second nominee, which is The Big Story, directed by David Stoughton and Tim Watts. This is the first and only nomination for both Stoughton and Watts. The pair first met while working on the British puppet satire show Spitting Image. Watts was an animator and Stoughton was a caricaturist and storyboarder, and the two of them became fast friends and started working on ideas together. They would eventually come up with an idea to turn Stoughton's caricatures into full stop motion puppets and developed what would eventually become today's nominee. They brought the idea to Roger Law, creator of Spitting Image, and he agreed to help them get the project made. Hey, the pair would win a BAFTA for this film, but before I get into exactly what The Big Story is, I do want to mention that the pair would both go on to quite impressive careers in film, each one's IMDb page having many recognizable titles among them. However, for this show, I do want to mention that Tim Watts, later in his career, won an Annie Award for his work animating for the Oscar-winning short film The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse. I do not need to say more. The Big Story, our shortest nominee in the category thus far, is about a young journalist at a newspaper confronting his boss about how he can never get any meaningful stories. All 3 characters in the short are Kirk Douglas caricatures and voiced by Frank Gorshin, who was the original Riddler on the Batman TV series with Adam West. So, the fact that this short is so short gives it really limited opportunities to really be that effective in any capacity, really. However, despite the fact that it literally is just 3 caricatures of Kirk Douglas just talking to each other, and the setting is a newspaper, it it's kind of fun. I kind of enjoyed myself. Like for the like 2 minute less than 2 minutes that we had with this short, I I thought it was funny. I like the black and white style. I think it does some interesting cinematography. I like the how pronounced the chins are on the 3 characters. And there's one shot where it's just like the 2 of them put their heads together, but the chins prevent them from getting closer, and you just kind of got to lean around it in order to get their foreheads to bump. And it's just it. There's some funny little moments in here. Like it's not a great film by any means, but for a short little thing, I enjoyed it.
was this because of or in spite of your dislike for Kirk Douglas?
The thing is, I I dislike Kirk Douglas as a person. I think he is a very good actor. And so for this film specifically, that isn't really saying anything about Kirk Douglas as a person. It's just doing a character on him because he was like an iconic face, as he was an iconic presence in film. It's just like I think my personal feelings about Kirk Douglas don't really play into this outside of me recognizing that this is Kirk Douglas. It's like because it's not really making fun of him. It's not saying that he's great or anything. It's just using these archetypes that he had embodied in his career in a funny little short.
Hmm. Oh, I liked it too, and I also think it counts for something that, look, the film it's parodying is popular in its way, is certainly acclaimed, and has had a big impact on American cinema. But I would say is not the best known of Billy Wilder's movies. I think if you stopped someone on the street and asked them to name a Kirk Douglas movie, you're getting a lot of Spartacus before you get down to something like this. So it is perhaps a more interesting target for satire than some of the more obvious choices. And yes, as you point out, they really do emphasize the aspects of Douglas's physiognomy that can be effectively marked. And obviously, their background in Spitting Image comes into that. I would say that I wished it was slightly longer, which is not something that I usually find myself thinking. But for what it is very funny. And I imagine that you sort of have to appreciate the brevity with which it tells its story and gets its point across.
Yeah, for some reason in the category of best animated short, there are a lot of films, especially at this time period, that seem to run way too long. And so to have a short that is as short as this one, it it's nice. It's nice to be able to say that something feels a bit too short rather than saying this went on for 10 minutes too long. And it's just like, yeah, I appreciate it a lot for that. It, Though I find it interesting that you consider this like a direct parody of Ace in the Hole. Oh, despite the fact you never actually said the name. At least I didn't hear
Sorry,
it.
yeah.
But
Whoops, I forgot. I just assumed that everyone listening would know what I was talking about. Sorry.
it's fine. I'm actually I imagine everyone listening probably would already know that about Ace in the Hole and everything. But for the listener who might not know like all these categories, might not know Kirk Douglas well.
Hmm.
Um, Ace in the Hole is a film about Kirk Douglas is of course a newspaper reporter who's looking for a big story, and he finds a guy who gets trapped in a cave who needs help getting out. It's based on a famous, or it's inspired by Floyd Collins, that's his name, and who got a caver who got trapped in a cave, and there was this big media circus is in order to about trying to get him out, and he eventually died. Uh, and this is a more cynical take on that story because there was also a journalist for Floyd Collins who was actually there for him a lot, was a big part in the rescue effort. Though the rescue effort did eventually fail, but yeah, uh, I I wouldn't really see this as like a parody of Ace in the Hole specifically though, because I guess this film is just too broad in order for me to see it as a specific parody of any specific Kirk Douglas film, because it is really just it's a generic reporter who at a generic newspaper who wants to just generic idea of a big story. I guess there is mention of like Dwight D. Eisenhower as like he recently got sworn in or something. I think that was like the article that's like, hey, I want something like that or whatever. But but yeah, it feels just like a broad caricature of Kirk Douglas's whole persona. And it's like I think they just felt that like the best way to show off these three differing Kirk Douglas types would be in a newspaper office. Is this like which yeah, I think it really works in that sense. Although again, it's like maybe it would have been better if it was longer. But at the same time, it's like for something like this, that's just like that the whole conceit of it is just, haha, Kirk Douglas. Isn't that funny? Um, I think the shorter the better is probably the way to go.
Mhm.
Might even
Yeah,
be better as like a comic strip or something.
yeah, maybe. It is a pretty limited joke. And sorry, I'm going to make another big reach now in terms of a reference, but in terms of short form storytelling, I recently watched the mid 2000s art house sensation Paris Je t'aime or Paris I love you,
Hmm.
which is one of those sort of omnibus films made up of a series of shorts directed by some of the most notable filmmakers from that time period. And I think part of the problem in that case is that you have very big name directors, a lot of big name actors, most of whom seem to have forgotten how to tell sort of a short form story or how to work in that format. And so you have these people who've been making feature films for decades, suddenly having to produce, sorry, a 3 minute piece of content. Oh God, no, no, not calling it content. A a 3 minute film. Sorry, I turned into David Zaslav for a second. That was horrible. Anyway, please forgive that. And you just get the sense that they're not suited to it. They don't really know what they're doing. You can see the kernel of an interesting idea buried in most of the shots, but it's just not their format. And I think that there are filmmakers who are better at making shots, whereas some filmmakers sort of solely rely on having a lengthier runtime to tell a story. Anyway, sorry, long sort of sidetrack there. But as filmmakers, Tim Watts and David Stoughton are remarkably willing to sort of cut everything down, to make it very economical, to get everything out there in a brief period of time. And I think you are right, even though I sort of wished it had been slightly longer. The really frustrating thing about Paris Je t'aime is that things will sort of start to get going at 2 minutes and 40 seconds into the shot, and then it's just over and nothing happened, and it was really boring. So the big story does not have that problem, and I was thankful for that.
Yeah, I really like Paris Je t'aime. Like,
Oh,
I like
sorry.
some parts of Paris Je t'aime. I'll say there's some. Whenever I remember the film, I just think about the good shorts. I think about the Coen brothers one with Steve Buscemi. I mean, I think about Margot Martindale and that fantastic final one. I think about Bob Hoskins and Fanny Ardant, and it's just like it. What watching that film or films like it, I think there's a lot of those kind of omnibus films. And it's just like it's basically just like experiencing this category. Or when I like watch through like 10 shorts in a row, it's just like sometimes they're good, sometimes they're not. Sometimes they should be better, sometimes they should be worse, but are actually quite good. It's just like it's a complete grab bag. And it's just like that's why I I see a lot of people talk bad about like films like that, or even like more pronounced ones where it's like there's five short films instead of 20. Yeah, it's like they just complain. It's just like they're bad because like not all the short films are good, but it's just like that's part of the fun. You just get this like nice little sample platter of all these different filmmakers and their styles, and it's just like see what you like. But but yeah, of course, like overall, it's like oftentimes it's like there's only a few good ones out of the whole bunch. But going back to big story, sorry for rambling. Um,
Sorry.
it's just what happens when we do these episodes. We always talk for so long. And it's just like as we've discussed, it's like your episodes are however the top three longest of this podcast. Three different episodes of yours are just in the top three longest episodes. It's just like that's just because we like talking to each other about movies and
We
stuff.
do.
And we
Yeah.
have all these fun ways to get off topic.
Hmm.
But I think I told you this, but when I was talking to Christoph one time, just asking him like what he likes when he listens to the podcast, he says he does really enjoy the tangent episode. So, and he said specifically that he loves your episode specifically because we get on tangents so much. It's just so wild sometimes where we go to. But but yeah, the big story. It is good enough for what it is. It's not something that's going to be it's not going to impact me in any way. It's not something that's life changing, but I think the imagery in it is strong enough where I will just remember the short film when thinking back to the category as a whole. And it's just like, yeah, that was something that existed. And just the significance that it is like one of the shortest nominees in the category. I think it just got dethroned by oh, what's it called? Fresh Guacamole by Pez in 2011. I think that was the only thing
Oh.
that dethroned it. And so, but still, just being one of the shortest things to ever be nominated for an Oscar is quite an achievement. And so
Mm.
that alone is worth remembering, but also it's a nice little thing. I
It's the Hermione Baddeley of this category.
exactly. Yeah. The listeners probably know what you mean by that because it's pretty much just Oscar people. But just in
Mm.
case, like Greta Gerwig is out there and doesn't know we she's not familiar with Room at the Top. It's Hermione Baddeley. She was nominated for Best Supporting Actress for Room at the Top with only like 2 minutes of screen time, I think it was, like 2.5 minutes. And she's quite a good nominee. It's like it's not I don't think I would have voted for her in that year. I forget who else she was up against, but she is a solid nominee. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
Mm.
anything else you'd like to say about this film or Hermione Baddeley or anything?
No, I think I'm okay.
All right. So going on to our third nominee is The Janitor, directed by Vanessa Schwartz. This is the first and only nomination for Schwartz. And folks, stories like this are the reason I love this category and all the short categories. They allow for people who have no ex who, ha- who are just normal as people. They get to be put on this world stage. And let me just read from the Los Angeles Times article from the time about Schwartz and her nomination. Uh, the night before the Oscar nominations, Vanessa Schwartz got the jitters. It was not enough that her very first film, a college project, was receiving serious consideration from the Academy of Motion Pictures Arts and Sciences. In the early morning hours of February 14th, Schwartz tossed and turned. I thought, it's Valentine's Day and I don't have a boyfriend and I'm not even going to get nominated, she said. I got really depressed. The next morning, the Academy announced that The Janitor was among 5 nominees in the short animated film category. At age 25 and still in classes at Cal Arts, Schwartz can count herself one of a dozen student filmmakers ever to contend for an Oscar. Me, she said, just a little animator. Now she can relax, right? Schwartz arrived at Cal Arts in Valencia as a costume designer in 1988. Jules Engel, dean of the animation department, happened to see a few of her drawings. It was obvious to me that I was dealing with a very large talent, he said. You don't ever see such sophisticated, imaginative drawings from such a young person. Engel persuaded her to switch majors, but she was new to this art. The images that consumed her, a vision of how the film should look, did not readily translate through young hands. After 2 years of study, Schwartz quit school and returned to her native Vancouver. She turned to Canada's National Film Board for whatever help they might offer a fledgling animator. They stuck me up in an attic where there was no ventilation, she said. They left me there to rot. For 9 months, she drew in that government office. The result was hundreds of sketches, all of which ended up stored away in a box. By the time Schwartz returned to Cal Arts in late 1992, she had developed a distinctive style. At last, she felt adequate to the task of transferring her vision of the janitor onto paper. Drawing consumed the ensuing months. This work required absolute discipline. Schwartz appears to encompass the best qualities of both an enthusiastic newcomer and a veteran. She finished the drawing and filming that summer and spent the fall semester adding sound. Schwartz is by no means the first Cal Arts student to succeed in the field of animation, but she is the first to hit it big while still on campus. The Janitor served as a project for her bachelor's degree. She has now embarked on graduate studies. She says, I didn't plan on grad school, but I'd never received an award like that before. And I really wanted to use it. It's such a fluky thing. I may do better films, but they may not get this kind of recognition. I'm trying to relax. I'm trying, but I hope I don't lose. I don't want to feel bad. That article was clearly written before the Academy Awards that year. Vanessa Schwartz did unfortunately end up losing. Not only that, but losing to a short by the NFB, the institution that left her to rot in an attic with no ventilation. Schwartz didn't end up doing much work in the animation field after the short, however. Today, she is a prominent professor and lecturer. She currently teaches animation at the Emily Carr University of Art and Design, and I found her Rate My Professor page. The common consensus about her teaching style is that her course is deceptively tricky. She's a wonderful person, incredibly nice to students, even when delivering harsh feedback. A professor that's always there when you need her, but is there to support rather than just give you the answer, letting you figure out for yourself what's right for you and the project. She sounds fantastic to me. But anyway, that is plenty about her. Let's just get to the short at hand. The Janitor is, I guess, a monologue originally from the album Celestial Navigations Chapter 1, written and performed by Jeffrey Lewis. It's about God's janitor who tells us about the time he accidentally flooded the earth and how he took care of God's son. Zita, what did you think of The Janitor?
Well, gosh, the animation style here is certainly a stylistic departure from the other two shots that we watched. And I really liked it. It does have, and I don't necessarily say this is a pejorative, but sort of that film school vibe, which I think works in this shot's favor. There is a naivete on display here, just sort of a willingness to do whatever works that I think some filmmakers lose out on once they get a bit older and once they develop more knowledge of the filmmaking medium. I like the fact that there's a sort of primitivism at work here. And obviously, her drawing style is absolutely beautiful. She does manage to draw out lots of memorable images in spite of the fact that she's working with such limited resources. And yeah, I think that's what will stay with me. I'm sure you were going to talk about the allegorical nature of it and sort of religion's place in the modern world. I'll admit that I didn't connect with those themes quite as strongly as I perhaps should have.
I think you think too highly of me in terms of my analytical capabilities. um, because like my main thoughts about this film were that like one, I'm kind of in the same boat as you, where it's just like this film is very clearly made by a film student, but I do enjoy the style of it. I think the way she draws the janitor character, I think, is very nice. It kind of reminds me of like uh Shel Silverstein in his drawings from like Where the Sidewalk Ends and all his poetry books, and with a mix of like scary stories to tell in the dark or whatever it's called. Well, it's like a kind of in between of those two, which is a very strange stylistic place to be in, but I enjoy it. I think the general art style is nice. But the thing I don't really like about it is the narration, the actual story that's here, because I think it's kind of nothing. I think it's just like, oh, God's janitor, and then it's just like, oh, I accidentally made the flood happen. I left the water running too long. God just wanted me to wash the earth. But then he sent his son down, and I told him I tried to look after him, but they killed him. Oh no! It's like, and also the janitor keeps mentioning something that happened yesterday, though I don't think it ever really says what happened yesterday, and just like what is this in reference to? Like, am I just supposed to guess like the world ended or something like that? Is this like what happened? Is this supposed to be after Revelations or something? I don't know. It's just so basic in terms of like just making a joke about religion and the Bible and whatever. And it just doesn't do anything. It just makes just makes some basic jokes. And that's it. It's
So
just
you're
like,
saying it's Sausage Party for kids in the 90s.
that's a very unique allegory. I don't think I would have phrased it quite that way.
Because Sausage Party also wants to be a sort of mild critique of religion, but then it's just so obvious in its treatment of its material that you can't give it credit for being clever.
I think Sausage Party is too good to compare to this.
Okay.
Um,
Well,
I think a better comparison would be Darren Aronofsky's Mother, because that
oh,
one is a super basic and stupid analysis of religion. And it's just like, I
the
think,
unbraced sink, though. Oh, the drama.
uh, but then again, that's like the one thing that isn't really like, well, it is part of the religion allegory, but it's like it's the one thing that isn't like specifically like uh talking about religion. It's like everything else. It's like the one part where the stupid part where it's just like they eat the fucking baby or whatever. And it's like, oh, what was that the metaphor for? I don't know. But but yeah, the sink thing, like that's the best part of the movie, I think. But then again, the rest of the movie is so stupid. It's so basic and wants you to think it's just so smart. And it's saying things that are so beyond like, oh, aren't I so edgy for saying things that are criticism of the world's most popular religion? Oh, but you're not smart, Darren Aronofsky. You're a very stupid person. I hope you will accept
Oh,
that someday.
oh
He,
boy.
God, I hate Darren Aronofsky, even though I do like some of his movies. It's just like I think
But you
like
weren't out there riding hard for the whale?
no, I
No.
wasn't. I was actively making fun of it. I love making fun of the whale. It's so stupid. It's amazing. Like God, I could spend an hour just talking about the whale and how stupid it is, but I feel like I need to cut myself short. But people are amazing.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I'm losing it. Darren Aronofsky just makes me want to rant about him because
Walt Whitman exploded the very notion of I. God, it was awful. Yeah, it was not good. You're right. That the
it's such a
essay
funny
that
movie.
he wrote should have been just slightly better. I know that part of the point is that he's her dad, and so obviously he's going to be emotionally moved by this terrible piece of writing that she did. It could have been slightly less bad.
hmm Yeah, it's like I think part of the point is the fact that it is like
Yeah.
a a bad essay. It's like it's just this generic essay that a kid who didn't read the book would write. But at
Yeah.
the same time, it's like it's meant to be like, oh, he likes it because it's the one piece of honesty that he's ever read from anyone ever. It's like, oh, he just wants people to be honest. He doesn't care.
Um,
They're just so fucking stupid. It's just like, God, everybody in that movie is so awful. It's
Mm.
just like,
Including the young Christian missionary who just pops by every now and then. But then it turns out that, oh no, he ran away. He stole money from his parents and the church. Not nearly interesting enough. Also wild that it does just turn into a very generic teen melodrama at times where Sadie Sink is flirting with this young boy. It's a lot.
mhm. It I think the one time that movie, the closest that movie comes to having a good scene is the scene where like uh where it's I'm just going to call him the whale because the fact that he has a name is irrelevant. It's just like in the movie itself,
Charlie,
titling itself the whale is just such a stupid thing. It's so bad. It speaks to everything that's wrong about this fucking movie. But yeah, Mr. the Whale, when he talks to the missionary guy, and it's just like he's trying to prove, I guess, that the guy is homophobic and doesn't like, or when he realizes that that the missionary guy doesn't like him because he's gay, hey, or whatever, and so he starts like confronting him. It's like talking about like his love life with his dead partner, and talk about like how disgusting I guess he is, as it's like trying to force him to admit that like he finds him visually repulsive, as it's like, because it's like that's what everybody would think when they see him. Is just like just I guess it plays into like the fact that he wants everybody to be honest or whatever, or but it's just like I think that's probably the most emotionally like poignant scene in the film.
mm,
And not the stupid scene near the ending, which when he's about to die or whatever. That's such a bad scene that everybody.
okay. My pick for worst scene in The Whale is the scene where he dramatically eats several slices of pizza, and they play this music as though this is a historical atrocity. This
Yes.
is children being massacred.
Oh my
This
God.
is a giant flood wiping out an entire town. And no, it's just a hungry guy eating pizza, maybe a little bit too quickly.
Yeah.
Just the overdramatic treatment of it is
God.
a lot.
Yes. Like first
Uh,
off, the whole score to that movie, it's like every time Mr. the Whale, when he stands up, it plays like this horror sting. It's like blah, it's like and it's just, oh my God, it wants you to be like horrified by him. It is, which is so, it's so awful. It's just like this is a movie that's trying to proclaim empathy, but every chance it gets, it wants you to be horrified and disgusted by its main character, and it's so awful. But yeah, that scene where it's just like, I forget what the context is. I think it's like after Hung Chao like runs out on him or something like that, and it's just like he just starts devouring food because he's so sad or whatever, or and it plays that horror music. It's so bad it becomes funny, and it's just like I love this one video where it plays that scene, except it plays like the score of Babylon over it, like the blah, 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 like that whole thing. It becomes so funny. It's God, The Whale is such a bad movie. I absolutely hate it so much. And but it's so interesting in how bad it is too, because there's so many little details that are just so awful. Well, and it's just like there's the random parts where they point out that this is in 2016 in Idaho, and they put footage of the Republican primary on TV, and it's just like, why are we talking about this? What does this have to do with the movie? It's like, is Charlie a Republican? Is that supposed to be it? Is that part of it? I don't know. Why are you showing us stats from the Republican primaries? I don't know.
it's an allegory.
How?
Actually, in the age of Trump, You know, I'm sure there were a lot of think pieces about that movie that must have started with your classic. In the age of Trump, we need to be thinking about this. This movie is resonant in the age of Trump.
Maybe the whale is Joe Biden.
That would make sense, though. Someone who presents themselves as a morally acceptable alternative to forces of evil who kind of serves as this ineffective alternative. What has Joe Biden really done?
Not a
Yes,
damn
he's
thing.
better than Trump, but not by much.
Actually, I'm changing that. The whale is actually supposed to be Hillary Clinton. And it's just like the fact that
Oh,
everybody is Darren Aronofsky's like everybody was just so mean to Hillary during the primaries. It's just like she just wanted to be better than Trump. And everybody was like, no, your emails. Nah. And it's just like how everybody is like so mean to her. And it's like maybe Hung Chow is Joe Biden or something. And it's just like everybody's
okay. I love the fact that within the framework of this moral allegory that we're inventing, Hong Chow, the wise, caring nurse, serves as a stand-in for Joe Biden, who wasn't he the pallbearer at Strom Thurmond's funeral?
I don't fucking know.
Okay, so Strom Thurmond, infamous racist who lived to 100 and was still in office at 100 years old. Awful. Anyway, supported segregation, I think, throughout his life. And I'm fairly certain that Joe Biden served as a pallbearer at his funeral in some capacity. Okay, yeah. Biden on his past praise of segregationist senators. Okay, sorry. Anyway, we can move on, but my point is Joe Biden, not a great guy.
Yeah, Joe Biden's not a good person. At least
He
he's funny though.
plagiarized speeches from British politicians without removing the very specific references to social customs that only exist in Britain, and then immediately got caught out for it. That is embarrassing.
Hmm. There's a lot of cases of like politicians just directly ripping speeches from each other. Like I remember uh there was a time when like Melania Trump, she had directly stolen like a speech Michelle Obama gave at like the DNC at one point, right? Which was very funny. Uh but but yeah. Anyway, I think this is the point where we just try and bring it back to the janitor. We have gotten a bit off track when we're talking
Yeah,
about American
sorry.
politics.
Sorry to Vanessa.
But yeah, everybody watch The Whale and just tell me how bad it is. It's because it's so bad. I don't
It's
understand how that movie won 2 Oscars.
Sorry, one final note. Something that I mildly enjoy as a person who obsessively follows awards, unfortunately, and watches all of the nominees. You get these awards-based movies that do not do well in theaters, but then show up on planes. And for some reason, everyone decides, maybe I should watch The Wife, starring Glenn Close and Jonathan Pryce, as I head to Australia. And so you're just sitting in a plane, and everyone around you is watching The Whale or The Wife or To Leslie. It's just such a peculiar phenomenon, I've found.
I'm gonna go on a flight tomorrow actually, and I'm curious to see like what movies I'll be seeing people watch if I do see them watch anything. It's just like it'd be very funny if I saw somebody watching The Whale
Oh
or
my
To
God.
Leslie to that matter. Though To Leslie is a much better movie, if only because Andy
Right.
Riceborough is genuinely good in it.
You're a secret To Leslie stan, though.
Not it's not that much of a secret, but yeah, I Like Andrea Riseborough, like I only watched To Leslie because it was nominated for an Oscar, of course. Whereas even though it did actually play in my theater for like a week, the September before like this time last year. Uh and anyway, I watched it and it's like Andrea Riseborough is so fucking good in that movie. And the rest of the movie around her is just nothing. Like who gives a shit? But Andrea Riseborough is amazing. And
Justice for Frances Fisher. She was right to beat that drum as hard as she did.
she was right to break Academy rules in order to promote her.
Uh,
But anyway, and it's like people were very like the whole situation around To Leslie was such a mess. And just like people were saying that like it's because of To Leslie that like uh I'm trying to remember uh, Viola Davis and The Woman King and Danielle Deadweiler and Till were not nominated. And I don't think that's very true. I think they're just two separate things that the Academy is being is bad about. And it's just like, and if we want to call for anyone to be not nominated in that lineup, we should be focusing our energy towards Anna de Armas and Blonde. Because she was
yeah.
also like not somebody who was really expected to get a nomination, but did anyway. Hey, and it's just like and also she's bad in that movie, and that movie is bad. Like let's just we should have removed Blonde from that Oscar lineup. But no.
You
It's just like
didn't cry when she dropped the charcuterie board on the beach?
I didn't cry when she was sucking off JFK.
Oh.
Or when the her baby, her like her fetus started talking to her or whatever.
Mm.
It's such a
Well,
bad
we've all
movie.
been there when you're a woman.
My fetus talks to me all the time. It's actually become a very good friend. I've made a letterbox account for it and everything for when we watch
Oh,
movies
yeah.
together. Anyway,
Sorry.
um, but yes. Anyway, Deadweiler and Till is actually my favorite performance of last year. But Andrea Riseborough and To Leslie is also very good. Academy should have nominated both of them, but they didn't because the Academy sucks. It'll always be imperfect. And they're also
Andrea Riseborough was great as two in To Leslie.
she gave everything.
Yeah.
Going back to the janitor, do you have any like this whole rant started because I was talking about how it lacks as a how it kind of fails as like a religion metaphor, how it kind of satirizes parodies like religious stories. Do you have any comments on that or anything else you like to say about the janitor?
I guess I agree with you somewhat. I'll admit that I wasn't thinking too deeply about it. Then again, I am the person who kind of likes Mother as a sort of black comedy and thought it was fun. So I don't have very high standards when it comes to that sort of thing. Obviously, it was a bit limited in its scope and in its treatment of that issue. At the same time, I don't know, I was sort of charmed by it. I think the just sort of handmade look of a lot of the animation sort of won me over. Spoiler alert, it's not the best that this category has to offer, but I'm sure that you have seen worse over the years.
Oh, definitely. Like I spoiler alert, I guess, but I only give this movie 3 stars, and there is so much worse in this category. And just in terms of just anything that like in terms of just like the theming of the short, it does better than a lot of films. In terms of the art style, it does better than a lot of films. This is a very much a middle of the road short when it comes to the animated short category, which
Mm,
and for somebody to make that out of film school, it's like that's still impressive in itself to make something this middle of the road.
yeah.
But yeah,
So I guess if we were to compare it to a feature film, is it the animated short equivalent of Oh, what's the animated short equivalent of Places in the Heart?
No, I like Places in the Heart too much. Wait,
Okay.
no, never mind. I confused it with another one. I confused
Oh,
it. What was that movie with Diane Keaton and Sissy Spacek and Jessica Lange?
oh my God, Crimes of the Heart. But no,
Yeah,
that is not just a middle brow, run of the
I like
mill.
that movie. It's
Oh my God. Okay, well, those are fighting mods.
I
I
think we talked about
despise.
this on a previous episode.
Okay, insane movie. For the listeners who are probably never going to watch it or have probably already seen it, there's not a twist in that movie, but you discover that Sissy Spacek, who is a fully adult married woman, she's been having an affair with a 14-year-old African American boy. We are meant to think that it's hilarious that she's a child rapist. And then it's either Jessica Lange or Diane Keaton who just throws the N-word out there, and it's meant to be hilarious. Oh God, aren't these racist sisters just so charming? I, I could not get on board with it.
It's been a long time since I watched it, so maybe if I watched it again now, I wouldn't like it. But I don't know. I'm probably not going to rewatch it at any point, though. To be fair. Anyway,
You're not a big Bruce Beresford guy?
I guess not particularly. Like, what else did he do? I think he did a really bad movie at some point.
He was Mr. Tender Mercies.
That was fine. Trying to look up his filmography. Oh, Driving Miss Daisy. That's it. Yeah, that fucking sucks. Yeah,
Oh,
Breaker Morant is whatever. Also, like I feel
oh.
like some people really liked that movie, but I didn't. It was fine. It was whatever.
Coming for the Australian film industry, I see how it is.
Well, yeah, it's just like historically, New Zealand is better than Australia.
Oh, thank you. Wow, you're
But yeah,
flattering.
yeah. Although I haven't seen Mao's Last Dancer, which I know is like iconic in Australian culture. So maybe if I watch
Mm,
that, that'll change my mind. Uh,
mm.
but anyway, it's not very comparable to Places in the Heart either, which
Okay,
is the Sally Field Farm movie from the year of the farm movies.
yeah.
Uh, but that movie is just so forgettable and so dull. Um,
Uh,
this is more memorable than that. This is like I try to think what would be a good allegory for this in terms of like comparing it to like a more well-known movie. Just something
hmm.
that's so I think it'd be comparable to the recent Dungeons and Dragons movie with Chris
Oh,
Pine and stuff because that movie is a movie that exists. It's a movie that I enjoyed while it lasted, but at the same time, I never really thought it did anything particularly good outside of its visual style, which I thought was enjoyable. I thought it was quite good. I like the design of the costumes and the characters and stuff. It's really nice to look at. Not as nice to watch. It's just kind of boring, but it's fine for what it is. And this short, The Janitor, is fine for what it is.
okay. Well, that's damning with faint praise. Imagine if someone turned to you after you'd made a piece of art and they said it's fine for what it is. I
Well,
would be,
it's good that
ooh.
I'm not like close friends with Vanessa Sports or anything.
I
And
just
she,
said, look, if my sort of greatest achievement in life was directing an animated short, and then suddenly I discovered a podcast that covered the animated short category, and she might be listening to this for all we know. She's been waiting months for this episode to drop, years even. And then suddenly it comes out, and she discovers that her animated short is comparable to a film made by Darren Aronofsky in a negative sense of the word. Oh my God.
I mean, it's positively compared in relation to Darren Aronofsky. Like,
Okay.
this is better than Mother.
Hmm.
But
the Pauline Kael energy that you're radiating at the moment.
But I want to counteract your point by saying you assume that this film she made in college is the height of that she thinks this is her greatest achievement when she's been teaching for decades. Like, do you assume that being a teacher is not fulfilling in its own right?
Oh, one note. Sorry, you brought up the Rate by Professor page.
Yes.
I find that so funny. There are plenty of notable filmmakers who have obviously gone into teaching in order to make a living when they're not out making movies. And one of those individuals is Jean-Pierre Gorin, who is primarily notable for collaborating with Jean-Luc Godard during that period where he went full on Maoist and made a bunch of movies that very few people have seen before he went back to, you couldn't call it commercial filmmaking in the early 80s, but let's say a more conventional style of cinema. And so Mr. Gurin, I think, taught at the University of Southern California or something, but you can find his Rate by Professor page, and it's very funny to read through. So many students who complain about being forced to watch In the Realm of the Senses.
Oh, that's so funny.
Oh, he taught at, sorry, the University of Colorado. Good for him, to be honest. Also, apparently not very good at speaking English, which would be interesting to wrestle with.
I was thinking about how Kelly Reichardt, she is a professor and like when she's not making movies, and I remember her Rate My Professor page went viral because not many people were kind about her. It's like I think I remember reading it before. I remember thinking that it's like it seemed like the students just didn't really care about the class, or it's like they were just not good students and failed because of it. But yeah, it was kind of funny to like you have this idea of like, wow, this is a great filmmaker, but then it's just like in their spare time they have to make money, and so they're also professor, and it's just like sometimes great filmmakers don't make great professors.
Mm,
But Vanessa Schwartz is not one of them because
yeah,
her Rate My Professor page was very complimentary.
because Jean-Pierre Gorin, he has a 3.3 out of 5 rating, and several students gave him an awful 1-star rating. So,
Hmm. But yes, I think this is a good place to move on to our fourth nominee, which is The Monk and the Fish, directed by Michael Dudok de Wit. This is de Wit's first nomination in this category. He was born in Netherlands and attended the Geneva School of Fine Arts in Switzerland. Then he moved to the UK to finish his education at the West Surrey College of Arts and Design. From there, worked in Barcelona for a year before eventually, finally, settling in London for at least for the time being. He is a very world traveler, at least European traveler. And this is as much as I'll talk about him now because he does end up getting another nomination later on. So, going to the short film at hand, The Monk and the Fish is DeWitt's third short film after The Interview, his thesis film at West Surrey, and Tom Surrey, or Tom Sweep, I mean, with The Monk and the Fish being his first taste of international fame. Not only did it receive this Oscar nomination, but was also nominated for the equivalent BAFTA award and won the César Award for Best Short Film. Traditionally animated, The Monk and the Fish tells the story of a monk trying to catch a fish, simple yet elegant. So, in preparation for this, I ended up watching all of Michael Dudok de Wit's films like all of his short films and also his feature film, The Red Turtle, which came out in 2016, I believe. And I have I am in love with his art style, and I think this is my favorite film of his. Well, I'll need to rewatch his other nominee, Father and Daughter, first, but this is a really, really great film. And I've loved this film ever since I first watched it in my first run through of the Best Animated Short nominees. Because, first of all, the art style is amazing, as it is on all of his films. I love the long shadows. I love this landscape that we're in. I love the like uh this is an ink-based short film, and it's like I love the way it all looks. I love the character design, and I love the way it moves too. Like the way the monk just bounces along as he's walking down and back towards the fish, trying to chase it everywhere. And in combination with the music too, it has this very traditional animated short style with the way it interacts with the music, very similar to like the silly symphonies, things like that. Yeah, and it's like it's so bouncy and fun. And it's just like in the monk, he just can't catch this damn fish. It's so funny that how hard he tries, he just can't catch it. But it's also just so beautiful. And it's like near the end of the film, it's just like it just suddenly like the monk and the fish are just kind of floating around into space, whatever. I'm not sure if it's an implication that they died or something, but it's so beautiful. And also so funny that this is just how this thing ends. They just kind of float off into space. But it's an amazing short film. I really love this. It is gorgeous. It's funny. It's so perfect. I one of my favorite nominees in this category. What about you, Zeta? What did you think?
I'm of the same opinion. It's really wonderful and it's constantly surprising you. I think you get a strong sense of just unfettered creativity at play. And obviously, the director of this film is probably most famous for directing The Red Turtle at this point, which is another great piece of animation, one of those sort of curious, dreamlike experiences that really immerses you in the world that he dreams up. And The Monk and the Fish is more surreal in many ways. There's less of a sense of it being tied to any reality. And yet I was sort of touched and moved by it in my way. And the use of color is also really impressive. Sorry, I'm reaching for a lot of things here. I'm struggling to fully articulate why and how this film got to me, but it did in its way. There's something ineffable about what makes it great.
Yeah, it's just something that I feel like anyone could probably enjoy. Like it's just
Hmm.
a very it like I was saying, it's a very simple film and concept, and you can instantly understand what's happening. It's a very classic example of the big guy, little guy dynamic, as we like to talk about in this show. Oh, where it's like the monk wants to catch the fish doesn't want to be caught. Who wins? And it's just like we watch them try and try, and it's just like it just never seems to get the fish. And it's so simple, yet the ways it does this, it's just like through its art style, through its music, through the movement, through just everything that Michael Dudek DeWitt adds to this film is what makes it so great. It makes it stand out from the endless similar films of one thing trying to catch another thing. And like this is better than every single Roadrunner Coyote film, which I'm not sure if it's a hot take. I feel like I'm just not as much of a fan of Roadrunner and Coyote than most people, but uh this is better than all of those. It's better than I don't want to say it's better than all Looney Tunes shorts and or all Tom and Jerry shorts, but I think it's up there. I think it might be better than most of them. It's just a really great short film that I think anybody could watch, anybody could love. It's so simple, it's so perfect.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's one of those ones that takes some time to sort of sneak up on you. Maybe it's even one of those ones that you have to watch a couple of times to sort of fully get it. But once you do, it really does take you on a journey.
Hmm.
And I can see why this was sort of so widely embraced at the time of its release. It's really quite something.
Hmm. Yeah. If you are listening to this, please just watch this film. The Monk and the
Yeah.
Fish. Just look it up. I think I watched it on Vimeo, but it's just like there's probably loads of uploads. Actually, no, I watched this on Facebook. There was like a weird Facebook upload. But yes, it's great film. Just a great film.
Mhm.
I wish I had more to say, but I just it's this is what happens. It's just like whenever I really love a film, it's just like I don't really have much, especially a film like this where it is just a very simple concept, and it's just like it's not something I can really analyze that much. Like we could talk about that ending, but then again, it's just like, what do you think happened? I think they died. I don't know. It's something more spiritual. Blah, blah, blah. It's not a very ripe for conversation, but it's just like sometimes I'm just so in love with film that it's just like all I can think to say is like, wow, this is amazing. This is amazing. This is amazing over and over again. But I just don't know what else to say.
Mm. I'm in the same boat. It's extraordinary. I would recommend that everyone watch it. At the same time, I'm sort of at a loss for words, which means that I'm hopeless as a critic. I think it is a bit of a letdown whenever you read, especially a professional review, where the critic says, "Oh, I was just so bowled over that I don't have much to say." And you think, "Oh, well, you got paid to write about this. Surely there's something that you have to say." Sorry, I'm really shooting us in the foot here. We are not getting paid for this, so we are
Mhm.
not in the same position as those writers. But I can imagine that it might be frustrating as a listener to hear us say that. However, go watch it for yourself, see what you think. I imagine that you'll be as impressed as we were.
I I'm wondering like what there are a few listeners at this podcast, so I'm wondering what keeps them coming back. And recently there was like somebody who listened to like every single episode in a row. Like I just gotten like a sunburst in like the statistics of like listen the amount of listeners on my podcast. It's just like because somebody I looked through the listen data and it's just like somebody just listened to every single episode. But it's just like who was this? Why did this happen? It's just like, but yeah, it's just so I'm wondering just like what keeps people coming back to this podcast.
Well, your charming presence, I would
I
say,
doubt it.
is number one. No, you're a very witty host. You're very good at building up a rapport with all of your guests. And I think you bring on fun guests too. I enjoy listening to Christoph waxing lyrical about some obscure animated short that I've never heard of.
Well, thank you for that. That's nice to hear. Um,
So
uh,
thank you so much for putting all of this together.
you, I don't even know what to say. I'm always bad with compliments. Thank you. Thank you. Um, but yeah, I just make this podcast because I want to make it, and then the fact that people listen to it is just a fun side effect. But yeah,
Hmm.
Monk and the Fish. Do we have anything else we want to say? Any tangents does this spur in us?
No, I'm a bit stuck. Yeah, sorry.
I mean, I
I'm not.
could rant about like why Roadrunner Coyote sucks, but I won't.
Oh,
I feel like I've talked about that before in this podcast anyway, because there was a
well,
Roadrunner short in the
oh,
60s.
oh. Well, coming up, you are going to see the nationalistic fervor that I can embrace when a New Zealander is involved in any race. So, Miss Erica Russell, she's
Yes.
my home girl in this case.
Well, um, so our fifth and final nominee is Triangle, directed by Eric Russell. This is the first and only nomination for Russell. Longtime animator, her career begins in 1972, where our New Zealand-born animator then just moves to South Africa and then to the UK, while working with a wide assortment of famous animation directors, including but not limited to Richard Williams and former Disney animator Art Babbitt. She would eventually make her own studio, iWorks, and make a trilogy of short films centered around dance for Channel 4. The first was Feet of Song in 1988. The final one was Soma in 2001. And Triangle, our second entry, he is our current nominee today. The film is simply watching human figures dancing with one another, an experiment in human motion. Zita, what did you think of our final nominee?
I was into it. I think it's something that you see a lot where, oh, we're going to use sort of shapes and colors to reflect the spirit of dance. And yet, at the same time, it sort of worked for me. Yes, it's generic. Yes, at art galleries, I've definitely seen better executed versions of this artistic concept, but there's a reason why it's such a common sort of film student go-to premise for a short. And it works pretty well in this case. I can see what she was going for.
Mhm. Yeah, this is really just like in a long line of like films that just use the film medium to look at
Mm.
the human body as we dance. And it's like this is very similar to like the Serpentine dance shorts from the 1900s, where a lot of filmmakers made films that were just like watching people do the Serpentine dance, which is like with this long flowy coat thing. And it's just like, and there's even a segment in this film that reminds me specifically of those. And it's like then you go to like the dance films of Maya Deren, and then uh, Norman McLaren has his own series of films that focus on dance. And it's like it's a very common theme throughout film history to just watch people dance. And I think though I think first to just put it in animation form to like draw the human body is a very interesting way, very unique way to do it. And I don't even think I don't think it's like rotoscoped or anything either. It's just her pure talent, and that's like, or the talent of the animators, is she did have other animators, uh, to just like bring the human body. It is a very realistic portrayal too. Like these are very anatomically accurate, I guess is the right word. I'm not sure. I think that implies things I don't mean to imply there, but it's a very well done depiction of the human body, and it's just like the way it moves with the music is just, and there is a kind of story here, though I wasn't quite able to parse what it's telling, because it starts with like two people, and then it's like there's a male and female figure, and then the male figure dances with another female figure, and then it ends up with three figures dancing together. I think it might be like a throuple kind of story where it's like the ideal ending to every love triangle is to just put them together. But I don't know. That's the closest I could come to like finding a story in here. But it's the real meat of the film is just watching these people dance, watch the beautiful animation, let it wave over you, just like all the music and the movement and the colors. It's just great film. Not maybe not great, but it's
Speaking
good.
of polyamory and thruples, have you ever seen the movie Caesar and Rosalie?
I don't believe so. Doesn't
Okay,
sound
so
familiar.
say Romy Schneider, Yves Montand, I can't speak French, joint. And the whole plot essentially leads into Romy Schneider helping to bring two men together. But the movie will not commit to that, and instead it pretends to be about how they're both desperately in love with Romy Schneider and become very close friends, wink, wink, when she leaves both of them. Doesn't make any sense. Would have been so much better if it turned into a sort of reverse Yentl situation where a woman helps to bring two men together. I was frustrated.
I feel like in our upcoming generation of filmmakers, we are finally going to get like a renaissance of like bisexual rom-coms that end with thruples, because I feel like this is
Yes.
such a prominent need and desire amongst like our generation, that we want to see this in films. It never comes about. That I think we're finally going to get some like mainstream movies that feature a three-way, and it's just like it'll be glorious.
Yeah, that would be nice. Honestly, Design for Living is way more sort of sexually explicit in certain regards and just open about what it wants to be than 90% of films that flirt with being about bisexuality and then just decide, oh no, it's easier to have a straight couple get together at the end of this.
Hmm. Yeah, it's just like it, and like it always sucks when like one of them gets left behind. So it's like, why not just have nobody get left behind? You know? Just let
Hmm.
everybody be happy. Give everyone their happy ending.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry,
But yeah,
didn't know that
triangle.
that was the
Yeah,
triangle. Yes.
try. Oh yeah, and it is triangle too. Like that's the title of the film. It's like the 3 points.
Oh, yes. Wow. You, okay, you studied film, yes, at
No,
university.
I
No?
didn't. Like I
What
had
was
a
the
couple film
student
classes,
of?
but I was a political science major with an astronomy
Oh,
minor, and
oh, wow.
it is my biggest regret in life.
Oh, oh gosh, sorry. I didn't mean to go there.
No, you're fine.
But
You're fine.
okay, when you were taking film courses, when you have to write an essay about, say, a film that you're not really sure about, that you don't have an entirely well-founded thesis to center your essay around, did you just sort of rely on buzzwords like I did occasionally?
I mean, I think I was always able to find something in there, or it's
Oh,
like I was able to force a point if need be. But it's just like I do remember one time I took this one horror film class, and I was
oh,
comparing Peeping Tom, the Michael Powell movie, to Creep by Mark Duplass, or starring Mark Duplass. Um and I was just like trying to find similarities between them and how they speak to like different, comparing and contrasting them essentially. And it was just like I remember like I was having trouble finding like ways that they spoke to like their different eras of film. Oh, it's like because they are similar because they're both about like telling a horror story through the film camera and things like that. But I remember like I was trying, yeah, just trying to figure out how they spoke to their own eras, and I was having trouble with that. But I eventually just kind of like tricked myself into having a point. I mean, or it's just like I was maybe I was able to genuinely find something, or maybe it was just like something got forced. I don't know, but it happened,
hmm.
and it's just like it's not like I always said something. Whether or not it was actually true is probably a different story.
Yes. Because recently I had to stand up in front of one of my classes and give a presentation on the Hong Sang-soo film in another country. And it was just a jumble of buzzwords, self-reflexive, meta, art house filmmaker, as opposed to the more commercial filmmaking styles of other Korean auteurs. There was nothing there really. And somehow I got a really good grade. So I don't know. I'm baffled and I worry that in the future I will try really hard on another assignment and karmically I will be punished and receive a terrible grade. So
Maybe
we'll see what happens.
maybe you'll be the next David Ehrlich. Who knows?
Oh, yeah. Wow. Writing really long intros to all of my reviews that are about not much of anything.
Hmm. And always just making needless comparisons to other films. It's like, wow, Triangle is like Yentl met the Black Swan.
Yes, yes. Gosh. I don't hate him as much as other people on film Twitter. Then again, I do not follow him, and I rarely see his takes on my timeline.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, it's
yeah.
like I've blocked him on Letterboxd just because I always hate when his like half reviews just show up in the top popular review section, because it's like
Mm.
his Letterboxd stuff is usually just like a paragraph and then like link to the rest of my review on IndieWire, or it's just like I don't fucking care, fuck off. So it's just
Yeah.
like, but yeah, I don't think he even tweets that much anymore. So, or maybe I just
Mm.
blocked him. Who knows? I haven't blocked him on my new account, so. But anyway,
Okay.
um, going back to Triangle, uh, I guess there isn't much to say here either, is the thing, because
Mm.
there's just like, well, one, it's not really about anything. It's just like a series of images, which is, great, but also makes it hard to analyze unless we were to like really go frame by frame with this and try to really parse something, which I guess I have done for other films, but those were like special cases when I really was trying to uh delve into like what made a film that I already loved, like Tig. Like there was this episode with this film Labyrinth, and not the David Bowie movie, of course, but
Right.
this Italian animated film, that's like very artsy and very like disjointed in its imagery. And it's like I spent so much time trying to parse the story here. And it's just like it's about a guy who like uh I think he either imagines this happens or it actually happens, but he kills his wife because he blames her for the death of their child and goes to jail and gets executed. Again, either that happened or he imagined it happened. But yeah, I
Mm.
spent like an hour just like going through that film, just like trying to parse it and like arranging my thoughts together. It's a really great film. I love the imagery. I love Manfredo Manfredi and all his films that I've seen at least. And so, but anyway, I'm I'm rambling too much.
Well, I enjoy your rambling, and I'm sure the listeners do too. And I think in this case, it is difficult to express your thoughts on a piece of art that is more abstract in many regards than something like Bob's Birthday, where I feel as though there's more to latch on to as someone who's trying to provide a critical analysis of it. And I guess that's why in classrooms, for example, a lot of the worst pieces of art get selected to be analyzed by the class, just because there are so many easy ways of pointing out, ooh, the visual symbolism, even
Mhm,
though the visual symbolism is actually terrible on a sort of aesthetic or artistic level.
mhm. That's why film school students make the worst films, unless you're Vanessa Schwartz.
Yes,
It's like
yes.
because they're forced to watch all these bad movies. It's like, oh, so symbolism is when you make it really obvious what you're trying to do.
They become convinced that The Searchers is the best movie ever made for reasons that I will never understand.
I I can't stand The Searchers. Like it's such a mediocre movie that everybody goes insane over for no reason. Uh, it's like John Ford makes so many good movies. Why is that the one that
I
people latch
know.
on to?
Oh my God. I do not get it.
Like it really like should be like Stagecoach or Grapes of Wrath, or it's like, and which those are celebrated films in their own right. But it's just like it's The Searchers is the big one, and it's just like why? Why?
It's so meh.
It's so meh.
I don't know. Oh well, everyone but us loves it.
Yeah.
So,
Well, not everyone. I've been seeing like a bit of a fight against The Searchers, I guess. Like I think
ooh,
in recent times it's like The Searchers is becoming less and less popular. And
there's
it's
an
like
insurrection of sorts.
yeah. I guess it's part of So it's like it's sort of related to like you remember the discourse around the BFI Sight and Sound 100 list, how it's like like
Hmm.
for decades it was like Citizen Kane was the best movie. Then the last one was Vertigo, and now it's Gendarme. And it's just like and there's this whole there's so many more like more international films and stuff, more women filmmakers, more just a broader space of film that is represented on the list. And it's like there's been some people who are criticizing it because it's like, oh, they're trying to erase the American classics. And it's just like, but no, what's happened is that in recent times, these these international films are becoming more and more accessible via like Criterion and things like that. And it's like, and some people are saying it's like, oh, so you're letting Criterion define what kind of movies you like? But it's like, no, it's just it's making these films more accessible. Well, it's these great films from around the world, from all these time periods, more accessible. And so we aren't just limited to the great films from American history. We can dive into this extremely broad world of film and just find what's great through that. And it's just like, and yes, the ones on Criterion are the most accessible, and thus more people will see those ones. And thus that's part of why Gendarme is the number one film, because that one is easily available on Criterion. It's probably on the Criterion channel too. I've seen screenings of it at sometimes, and it's like it is one of those films that has become more accessible. But at the same time, it's just like there's so many great films out there. We just gotta find them. Anyway,
Hmm.
fuck the searchers.
Yeah, I all of the new Hollywood filmmakers talk about it being the greatest movie that they'd ever seen. And what were they on? Maybe I just need to take drugs, and then I would enjoy it.
Maybe get a shit ton of coke. I think that'll help.
Hmm.
Yeah, or watch that mini series that Martin Scorsese did uh, in like 90s where he just talks about his favorite movies. I think he talks about The Searchers in there.
Hmm.
And then again, that is just a great mini series. I really love as long as you love listening to Martin Scorsese talk about movies, because that's essentially all it is. But
Yeah.
as a person who loves listening to him talk, it's a really great
Hmm.
time. I love hearing his thoughts on movies, even when I disagree with them.
Hmm. Yeah. I don't know. Sorry for this whole tangent again. If you
Yeah.
do love the Searchers and you're listening to this thinking that we are fools who just don't appreciate its genius, don't worry. You're the ones who have all of the power in this world. So,
If Martin Scorsese specifically is listening to this episode,
hmm,
it's at Zita Zita underscore short on Twitter. You can find her there. Just go yell at her.
hmm.
And my account's on private, so you can't find me. Though you can at the podcast, I guess. The underscore short underscore pod is very easy to find that. Though, really, if you did like send me hate tweets, it would just give my account more engagement. Like, please do, actually. Please just inundate me with hate comments so that I can play the victim, and then people would have sympathy for me.
Hmm.
Like that person who called me a Nazi on Letterboxd yesterday for no reason.
Oh, you could become the Axel Weber of cinephiles.
Who's Axel Weber?
Oh, you haven't heard about this? So, this rich kid on TikTok pretending that he's a poor, struggling student who just wants to make it as an actor, auditioned for Juilliard, in spite of the fact that
Oh, I
he had
remember
hardly,
this.
yeah, he had hardly ever studied Shakespeare before and couldn't sing. This sort of thing, which would naturally sort of disqualify someone from competing with the top level drama students who generally apply to go to that school. He was rejected for understandable reasons. And then a TikTok movement rallied behind him and started harassing Juilliard on various social media sites, asking them why they haven't accepted Axel into their school.
I can't wait for us to get inundated with people asking us why we haven't accepted the searchers in our hearts.
Yeah,
Uh,
it helped.
but yeah, uh, that person that called me a Nazi, it was just because I didn't like Ben Platt in theater camp. And it's just like that was it. I don't understand why they care about Ben Platt that much. Unless it was Ben Platt himself.
Oh,
Because the person did make a whole letterbox account just to comment on my review. And
oh,
it's just like maybe it was Ben Platt just looking himself up and being like, "Hey, this person doesn't like me. Probably a Nazi."
ah, oh gosh, you're really going through it. I remember, I think my worst letterboxed comment was someone telling me to shove my tampon back back up my vagina. That's probably the funniest thing that anyone has ever written as a negative response to one of my reviews.
My God.
Um, I deleted it, of course, but should have kept it, honestly.
You should have framed
I
that.
was
That's
being too
hilarious.
censorious. Yeah.
Yeah, you should have framed that comment. That is amazing.
Yep.
Uh, I think
Anyway,
I think we have finished talking about Triangle. Unless you have one last thing you want to say about it.
no, I'm okay. I think we've listed all of its virtues. So,
All right. So now that we've gone through and talked about the five nominees, let's rank them all. Zeta, start us off with your number five.
so at number five, I think this is rather predictable. I wish that I were a more exciting individual, I guess, but we're going to go with the janitor.
I also put The Janitor in number five. It it's not a bad film. It's just kind of basic and with the whole janitor plot line it does. And though the animation is really nice, I wish it was just put towards a better film. Number four.
So in position four, I guess I would put Triangle. I did really like it. I think it's very accomplished as a piece of art. I'm just not sure whether it has anything over, I would say, the slightly more ambitious other nominees.
It's weird hearing you say that when I was gearing up my number four, which is The Big Story. I wouldn't call
Ooh.
it very ambitious. Um, I, if anything, Triangle is more ambitious than it. But yeah, The Big Story is a very basic film. It's just three caricatures of Kirk Douglas talking to each other in a newspaper office, and it's fine for what it is. It's enjoyable, but for a short that comes in under 2 minutes, it's not much. And it's like the other three are just more substantial to me. What's your number three, Sita?
So my number three is The Big Story. I really like it. I think it's fun to see them engaging with this piece of old Hollywood history. Sorry for not specifically name checking Ace in the Hole.
I
But
I did it for you. It's fine.
you did. Yes, you were there to help me. So thanks for providing some crucial support. Uh, no, I like this one. I think it's a lot of fun. Unfortunately, Quentin Tarantino is a fan of it, which did briefly cause me to reconsider taking on that
He
opinion, but
is?
it's still good. Yes, apparently he requested that this be played before Pulp Fiction in theaters.
I'm looking this up. Like I just want to find the source for that.
It's on Wikipedia,
It
but the
is.
source is from a website called Squiggly, which sounds very trustworthy.
Yeah, very, very much. Oh, I guess it is there. I guess I didn't spend too much time on the Wikipedia page of the film. I went straight to Tim Watts and David Stoughton's pages. But let me see that. Anyway, um, my number three is Triangle, which, as we've been talking about, it's a very beautiful film. It's, I love just watching the dancing in motion, and it's just like I wish I got more opportunities to like go to like ballet or something because I always love dance and stuff, but I never have that opportunity. But anyway, Triangle, good film,
Hmm.
great colors, great movement, big fan. Number two.
So number two, this gets a little bit more complicated because I really do like both of the contenders here. I think I'd say it's Bob's Birthday. Very funny, very English, very distinctive in terms of its comedic sensibility, but just lacking in the special something that The Monk and the Fish has.
Mhm. My number two is also Bob's Birthday. Hey, which it used to be number fifth and number five in my lineup, but on this rewatch of it, I found a lot more to appreciate in it. And it's quite a good winner in this category. Though it's not an all-timer or anything. It's not like a top 10 winner, but it is solid. I'm very glad this did win, though it's not my favorite. It's still just a good, solid comedy film that I enjoyed. And we have the same number one, it seems. So, Zita, tell us about why Monk and the Fish is your number one.
I think it's the most immersive of the five nominees here. It feels like it's doing something new. It's really forging out a path. And I also think that if you wanted to apply, and I hate this term and I hate this theory, but an auteurist reading of it, this is the one that most clearly opens itself up to that sort of critical analysis. And I am glad that Mr. Dudok DeWitt
Yeah.
was able to build on this and go on to have this illustrious career.
Mhm. Yeah, totally agree. It's such a gorgeous film. It's such like I was saying, it takes this simple concept of just a monk trying to catch a fish and just takes it to its extent. It just makes it so gorgeous. It makes it so fun. And I totally am just in love with this film. Oh, it's such a great nominee, and it's been like one of my favorite, most iconic nominees in this category. It's just something I think about a lot. Just the imagery in it, and just the way it moves, and the music and everything. It's just so, so well made. Absolutely in love with it. So yeah, that's our top five. It's pretty similar, except we
Oh,
switched a big story and triangle between us. But yeah,
we're on the same page.
which is always nice to have.
Yes.
I'm trying to think if there was an episode where we weren't like totally in agreement. Because I feel like it has to have happened before, but I can't exactly remember. Because I remember like the Anna and Bella episode, we were pretty in sync on. The Every Child episode, maybe not. I'm just trying to remember everything. I don't exactly. It just so the episode that just released at the time of this recording was an episode. It was the episode of Tin Toy, and apparently in that episode, I was thinking back to uh, previous years, and I mistakenly said that the short film The Snowman, the great Christmas film with like a David Bowie introduction, or whatever, it had lost to Sunday in New York, which is an infamously bad winner, although I quite enjoy it.
Oh,
It,
okay.
but it had actually lost to Tango, which was the episode I discussed with Christoph, and he responded jokingly, of course, that's just like, how dare you forget like our episode that we recorded together? It's like, but it's just making me think. It's just like I record so many of these episodes, it becomes so easy to forget like what shorts were in which year and like who I discussed what things with. As just like what. what did this person think about this short? It's like whatever.
Hmm.
But at the same time, actually, it's like this podcast is also helping me remember like each of these shorts specifically. And it's like I can still say my thoughts on like just trying to find a random short in here, like Squatter's Rights or Musical Moments from Chopin, whereas before it's just like I would have no memory of any of these. It's because
Hmm.
I'm forcing myself to develop opinions and have something to
Oh,
say about them.
you're developing your critical thinking skills, as you would say on a curriculum vitae.
Exactly. It's like but before this podcast, I had zero critical thinking skills. I was just absolutely brain dead. But this podcast helps me actually have opinions on things, as if that was a struggle before.
Yes, famously unopinionated individual, Jackie.
But yeah, what what an episode! What a year what this was. We have it's such a I'm trying to think of the word. It's like didactic, maybe. It's like each short is very unique among itself. It's like no two shorts are alike. Like, and
Yeah.
it's always nice to, and that just kind of happens every year at this point, like where it's just like there's rarely any two nominees in a year that are similar, or I except for like 1990, which had two films by the same director, Nick Park. But outside
Uh,
of that, it's just like it's just a very at this point in time, it's just like every nominee is distinct from one another, and that's just so great to have.
yeah, that's something to be celebrated.
Mhm. But yeah, I guess in the future, maybe like actually, I was going to say it's like in more recent times they would be more similar, but actually that's not even true, except for
Hmm.
2019, where we got four depressing nominees that are all just
Oh,
and then Hair Love, which was the winner, which is the one uplifting
okay.
one among the lineup.
Okay. Gosh. Yeah, well, at least it's unlike the Best Actress category, where you end up with a year where three pretty great actresses are all playing boring farm wives.
Maybe.
And Sissy Spacek has to endure being Mel Gibson's on-screen wife. God.
I still need to figure out who I'm going to get for that 2019 episode because I don't want to force anyone to sit through those four depressing films, but someone's going to have to do it with me.
We as a society let that happen, and that's on us. Someone should have stopped it.
We I need to sacrifice someone to the Academy gods to
Mm,
prevent it from happening again.
yes.
But the question is, do I put it on an unsuspecting guest or do I find someone who knows what they're getting into?
Mm,
Because like for 2009, which is in my opinion the worst year in this category's history,
uh,
I did preface my guess with I'm just warning you, this is the worst year. Are you sure you want to be on it? And they said yes. So that's fine. But
wow. You gave them a chance to get out. This is like in one of those 70s disaster movies where someone sacrifices themselves nobly and heroically, and then the wife, who's probably a prostitute or something within the story, offers to off herself instead, and he says, "No, baby, I have to do this for you." God, this is an Ernest Borgnine reference all of a sudden.
yeah, this is Poseidon Adventure.
Yes. Ugh.
I love Poseidon Adventure. Like it's a
You,
very cheesy disaster movie, and I usually don't like that genre, but Poseidon Adventure gets me.
the one part of that story that I find funny is that there is a girl of indeterminate age, but she seems like a teenager because her younger brother is meant to be 8 or something, and it seems like they are around the same maturity level. she is so horny for Gene Hackman. Just down to do whatever as soon as she sees him. And it made me slightly uncomfortable. At the same time, at least someone was being just a little bit horny in that movie, which is otherwise disappointingly asexual for a film where one of the main characters is a former prostitute.
That should be on the box cover of Poseidon Adventure. Disappointingly asexual.
It is. I think everyone would sort of agree with me. It's hardly baby doll.
I mean, I'm not going to Poseidon Adventure for a sexual movie. I'm going to see the ship
Well,
sink.
we have different
And for
priorities.
Maureen McGovern's song, of course.
Oh yeah.
I
She
love
was
the morning
killing
after.
it in the early 70s.
Okay.
I love how in that movie though, they play this extremely sort of sleepy candle music, and then you cut to sort of the young, hip kids on the ship dancing along to it like it's the latest rock record, as though this is some really sort of crazy, outrageous music that you can thrust your hips to. And clearly, it's not. It's the sort of song that your grandmother likes to listen to. So I miss the early 70s, I guess, is what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm. Don't we all?
Yes,
I
we who
guess.
definitely lived through that time period and know what we are talking about.
Yeah, we want to bring back Watergate. We want to bring back President Nixon.
Yes. He was framed. He's actually a good man. The one time that I went on holiday in America, they tried to get us to visit the Richard Nixon Presidential Library. And I thought, who is going there? Who has ever voluntarily gone to the Richard Nixon Presidential Library?
I mean, I haven't been there, but I might go. Might be fun. Who
Okay,
knows?
head out to California, spend the day there, get a commemorative mug.
Actually, I'm gonna look up where in California it is because I am going to San Francisco. And if it is in San Francisco,
Oh,
I
you'd
I might
better
just
wear
go just for
flowers in
fun.
your hair.
I've been making that joke to myself for so long. Just because it's like, oh no, I better not forget the flowers in my hair or else they'll kick me out. Oh no, it's outside of Anaheim. Oh, so
Oh.
you go to Disneyland, then you go to the Richard Nixon Library.
Ah, what could be more American?
If only Disneyland had the Hall of Presidents, and it'd make that so much better.
Hmm.
And it's like you could see Richard Nixon, then live Richard Nixon.
Than be Richard.
As if the Richard Nixon Library just turns you into Richard Nixon.
My God. Yeah.
Anyway, the whole Watergate scandal was trying to who just take a neurodivergent man down. And it's just like it's
Yeah.
so prejudiced.
We're biased against the Olivia Rodrigos of the world.
Where,
It was
where
a
did
rough
Olivia
time.
Rodrigo come from?
She's neurodivergent, allegedly.
I did not know that. Okay. I guess I don't know much about Olivia Rodrigo,
Yeah, and
but
she makes boring pop music. Sorry, I'm going
her
to
music is
rag on
so boring.
Olivia. They're trying to promote her like she's the new Lady Gaga or Britney Spears, and the tunes are not living up to the hype.
Hmm. Yeah, it's just
And
like
I
every
don't, she's feuding with Sabrina Carpenter. Like,
another
I
fake
miss the
person.
2000s. Sorry, we used to have Lindsay Lohan and Hilary Duff fighting over Aaron Carter, and look where we are now.
I mean, that kind of sounds boring too, to be real.
We used to be a real country, America.
You're in New Zealand.
I'm saying from afar, I lament the decline of American society.
Mhm. But yeah, um, Olivia Rodrigo sucks. Her greatest contribution to American culture is the the Diary of a Wimpy Kid edit that to the song Driver's License,
Mm.
which is perfect. But outside of that, no impact. Could She could have just disappeared and I would not notice.
Yeah, I
This
just
feels way too mean. I'm sorry.
anyway, yeah, sorry to Miss Rodrigo. I hope she's not listening.
She's
And
definitely
let's
not.
move
She has better
on.
things to do.
Yeah, she's recording Bad Idea, right? I don't even remember the
I don't
names of
know.
the songs.
It's like I think her new album was like vampire themed or something. I feel like I remember there was discourse about like or like it's called like Blood or something like that. But the cover art is so bland and people were like, "What are you talking about?" Like that's such a I don't know. It's whatever. I don't care.
What are you talking about?
I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm just half
Okay,
remembering discourse I saw in my timeline once because
okay.
I'm friends with people who care about these things for some reason.
Uh, is this like how I follow people who are interested in Taylor Swift? And so I
Yes.
seemingly cannot escape from her. It's
Shout
just,
out to Emily.
I love Emily. I love maybe 70% of what she posts. I Taylor Swift, she's not cool. She will never be cool. And this is mean, but her fans are as lame as she is when they post about her.
Oh, I confused the pronouns for a second. And when you said her fans are as lame as she is, I thought you meant Emily for a second. It's like, why are you calling
No,
her lame? No. Uh, but yeah. Sorry, Emily, that we're talking bad about Taylor Swift, but I just don't care.
she's she's so boring. No celebrity has ever been as boring as she is.
And I do not like the fact that the Eras Tour is getting a theatrical release movie and that the tickets cost $19.89, of course. And it's going to be screening, at least in my theater. I'm not sure if it's like this everywhere, but it's going to be screening weekends only. And so it's just
Oh,
like, and apparently it's going to get big numbers. It's going to be such a chaotic mess.
hmm.
And I am not ready.
Oh God. I honestly I forget how difficult it must be to operate a movie theater when you have a bunch of angry, screaming children who want to go to, I don't know, a Marvel movie. It must be hell.
Oh yeah, the theaters for like Marvel movies especially are just like so messy and just people do not pick up their trash for some reason. And
Oh God.
but yeah, I Taylor Swift fans are going to be the worst. I know it. They are going to be so annoying. They're going to be so messy. They're going to just
Yeah.
destroy our theater. They're probably going to leave a bunch of like tiny alcohol bottles in there too because for Barbie, like every single theater I cleaned, there was at least one like little bottle of Fireball in there. It was just like, why do people keep bringing alcohol to Barbie?
Oh my God. Okay, that's a lot. I'm sorry you had to go through that.
It's fine. It's fine. Uh, but yeah, we are in a good time right now because it's September. Well, first, I'm going on vacation, but it's just like this is the slow period that I love. It means it's not that busy, especially on the weekdays. It's so slow. That's perfect. I love not doing anything.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat at the moment. I just feel exhausted with the world.
Mhm.
Sorry, I'm sounding very melancholic and Austrian at the moment. I
We're
don't
we're
like it.
circling back to Bob's birthday with this.
Yes, let's stop, I
No,
guess.
let's just do the whole episode again. I'll start. Our first nominee and the year's winner is Bob's.
Oh, my God.
Uh, just to make sure this episode is as long as possible, we just do the whole episode again. I just realized we've been talking for like 2 hours.
Yeah, okay, let's
This
let's put an end to this.
Before we end our show, though, are there any final thoughts you'd like to share, Zita, or anything you'd like to promote?
Well, my podcast, the 300 Passions podcast, was on thin ice for a while as I wrestled with my work schedule and tried to find a way to record episodes while I was half delirious after working long shifts. I'm back on track now. I am not working those long hours anymore, so that's been nice. And my most recent episode was about Funny Face, the 1957 Stanley Donen musical. I was able to chat about it with Owen Daly and Chelsea Coates, and that was just wonderful. I had such a great time, and I'm currently in the process of lining up a few more episodes. So I'd like to extend an invitation to you to come back on at
I
some point.
would be happy to.
Oh, thank you. And this has been great. I'm sorry for chewing up so much of your time, but you
You're
are a
fine.
fabulous host.
Well, thank you for saying that. And it's just like your podcast is so great. We always have fun talking about. So we don't even know what our next episode is going to be yet because, like, my last episode was my 10th episode where I finally did like one of each decade of films or whatever from 1910 to the 2000s, and it's just like I don't know what's next for me on your podcast, so we'll have to figure that out.
We will. Yes, it'll be interesting to see what you select.
And I'm just realizing that this episode of this podcast comes out the week after like the Eras Tour movie comes out.
Oh no.
So by
You
that
will be a
point,
man traumatized by then.
exactly.
Oh God.
But yeah, thank you, Zita, for coming on the show, and thank you, listener, for tuning in. This has been a short podcast about short films. Until next time, goodbye.